Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As always, if you're a regular to our webinars, we're just going to leave it just for 60 seconds or so, just to let everyone join us and to settle in. So this is actually our second webinar of the year, and I just can't believe how quickly the year is going, and we're almost in March already. So it's great to have GP and SD works for today's webinar. Anyway, so I'll just leave it for a second or so and then we'll start. So actually I can't keep quiet miserably in these 60 seconds. It's impossible for me. Okay, so, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, it doesn't
Catherine?
feel right just to be quiet.
No. I don't know if that's a British thing or just me, I don't know, but anyway. Okay, so as I said, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, I really enjoy our webinars with Catherine from GP, and it's great to have Isabel from SD Works. So today we're going to be talking about getting the foundations right for global payroll, and I'll introduce you to Catherine and Isabel shortly. So as we all know, the pandemic has brought on many things, hasn't it? So we had 2022, the cost of living crisis, you know, the mass tech sector layoffs, and then all sorts of global events around the new workforce trends. And you know, there's so many more things that companies really have to tackle in 2023. Try not to be too depressing, but I think it's going to be a bit of an eventful year. And obviously that then has issues with the payroll department and the payroll industry. So I'm going to pass you over to Catherine, who will introduce herself to you.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here. So thanks, Mel, for doing all that you're doing and hosting this for us. I'm Catherine Barnes. I am Senior Employment Counsel here at Globalization Partners. Globalization Partners is an EOR platform for those of you who are not familiar with GP at all. I've been with GP for over 4 years now, and as Senior Employment Counsel, I deal with all employment law matters that come into the business. I also help set up entities globally, and I support the business with our expansion as well as those of our clients. So many complex issues that we deal with, and my region, being the EMEA region, is quite large, and I cover over 52 countries at the moment. So lots to do, lots of compliance things to deal with, but yeah, as long as we deal with those compliance issues and make sure that we're all good, that's what keeps me happy. So yeah, again, thanks, Mel, for inviting us to speak.
Not a problem. And Catherine, only 52 countries.
And counting.
Yeah, that's a busy job. And obviously we have Isabel. So thank you so much, Isabel. It's our first webinar with you, and it's great to see you here. Would you like to introduce yourself to everyone? Oh, can you? I can't hear you, Isabel.
There you go. I think this is much better. I have 2 unmute buttons. So exactly as you all saw, it was my first webinar together, but I'm so happy to be in this session with 2 of those expert ladies. My name is Isabel de Kraane, and I work as a global sales manager in the international division of SD Works. SD Works is a payroll and HR services and software provider for already decades. We're already for over 75 years in the market. Myself, I'm based in Belgium, and I've had the pleasure of working with HR and payroll professionals for over 25 years already. I really support small and medium and large organizations, really to support them in identifying, selecting, and also meeting their HR and payroll requirements, and both in Belgium, which is domestically, but especially also on an international level. The reason why I joined SD Works, well, that was already 21 years ago. And that was because I really love the culture of SD Works, but also, of course, the professionalism of the company. And first I worked on the Belgian entity, but a couple of years ago, I took the exciting opportunity to really work for the international sales team. And in this position, I'm on a day-to-day basis. I'm in contact with international customers. So I really hear firsthand what their real needs are on an HR and payroll level. Also hear firsthand what the trends are in the markets. And I think this is also very important that as SD Works, as a company, we also make sure that we've got our solutions fit those needs and trends. So very happy to be here and to have that discussion with everybody.
Thank you, Isabel. And I'm so sorry, my dog got involved in that conversation as well. Unfortunately, you're running the presentation from home today, so Teddy wanted to get involved. So apologies. Hopefully, he won't do that too much. But as always, one thing I just wanted to say before we start, we do like we like our webinars to be interactive. So if you have any questions, please ask the questions during the webinar, and I can ask Catherine and Isabel as we go along. So, Catherine, over to you. So how is the world of work going to be different in 2023 as compared to 2022? There's a few highlights there, wasn't there? But what do you think?
Oh my goodness, where to start? 2022 was a year, wasn't it? Yeah, so I think as we've seen over the last couple of years, I think the world that we're now living in, and what we can expect, and I think we draw on terms like the never normal. I don't think we're ever going to be in a situation where we looked back a couple of years ago and just could roll our eyes at the government for making some rubbish decisions. I think that we are in a world where we are dealing with constant crisis and different crises overlapping. We've had COVID, which continues to have impact on business, still, and that will continue to happen. So it's looking at what the needs are of different companies in terms of still trying to accommodate those suffering with COVID. Is that changing for companies? Does it need to change for companies? I think that is something that we will start to look at, and things will start to really take a hold in terms of how companies should be dealing with COVID specifically, whether COVID should be a thing, whether COVID should just be considered as the flu. There's lots of discussions around that. We're still trying to figure out, in different countries, how the economic crisis is hitting different countries. It's hitting at different industries. For us at GP, there are certain trends that we are seeing in certain companies that are trying to retract. Are we talking ourselves into a recession? Those type of things. So all those things are impacting the world of work. And then on top of that, all those discussions are impacting the health of our employees. So I think that's going to be a huge thing as well. We're still focused on mental health, physical health of our employees, and certain countries are bringing in pieces of legislation that are dictating that employers need to be more ahead of the curve when it comes to supporting employees with mental health situations or physical health complaints. So I think that is going to be a big thing. And we continue to see the world of remote work. I mean, GP, we are a remote first company. We've got over 1,000 internal employees, and they all work from home. We've got over 8,000, 9,000 external employees, most of which work from home. So we are going to continue to see that evolve, I think. And I think society and employees are really forcing that to continue. And there has to be flexibility. I've always been a champion. If anybody's seen my webinars post-COVID, pre-COVID, you would have heard me go on about flexibility and how it's essential for employers to have flexibility. Now employers are forced to have flexibility because that's what employees are dictating. So I think we're going to continue to see the evolution of remote work, hybrid working, and then in line with that, I think digital nomads. I definitely think that that's going to be something that is going to be interpreted differently country by country. Some countries, such as Portugal, they've just gone full steam ahead and introduced legislation to support digital nomads. So for employers, then it's difficult to try and figure out how we work around that. Certainly when we talk about payroll and when we talk about different legal liabilities in each country. So for me, those are the big topics I think that we will certainly be talking about and trying to figure out as we go through 2023.
It's interesting because there's been quite a lot of conversation about, are we talking ourselves into recession? That's actually been a big topic to events that I've been to recently. And also hybrid or remote working is here to stay, isn't it? That's reality. No matter how much you want people to maybe come back into the office, we've had a taste of it and it's not going to change.
And I think, employers really need to be reasonable as to that ask as well, just because that was the norm. We're now in a situation where it's never the norm. So it should really be reasonable. And, as employers, do we really need those individuals to be in the office? Some would say absolutely, but some would say, well, not so much, but that's what we've always done. That doesn't make it the right thing though. So yeah.
No, it's true. Okay, so Isabel, what are the most common challenges organisations face when managing their global payroll?
Okay, well, it's of course my based on my own subjective vision, but I think there are some common challenges. And if I may, I think I've already revealed, and I think there are 6 of them. And I think the first one, a lot of persons or HR or payroll managers who on a day-to-day basis manage international payroll, they will say yes to the first one. And I think the first one is definitely compliancy, especially when you work in multiple countries. And let me throw some figures at you. I always like to do that because it's based really not only on my subjective gut feeling, but also based on really analysis. And I think when I read that 3 out of 10 companies state that legislation has always had a very negative impact on handling payroll successfully, that's a bit scary. And I would even say that when you know that 50% of international companies state that the speed of changes, not only the differences, but the speed of changes in social legislation, and that's also complicating payroll the most, that really drives that why I say that compliancy is the first challenge. I mean, meeting legislative requirements in multiple countries and also keeping up to date with the speed of those changes, that's probably the biggest headache that most organizations who operate on a global payroll, that's a challenge. And some organizations, they will look to outsource to have some support on tax or accountancy. Some of them will have their own expert employees in country. And that's important that you have that expertise, whether you have it in-house or whether you go outsourcing, because it's very important, because the cost of failing on being compliant can really result in heavy monetary penalties, but also, and a lot of people forget that, but also in damage to a company's reputation and even brands, and of course exposed to risk. So I think that's why I put compliancy really on the first challenge. Also scalability. I mean, a lot of things are going on an economical way. So people are doing mergers, acquisitions, like fast growing businesses, but that can also expose issues when it comes to current in-house local payroll solutions. Maybe that solution is not able to manage such an increase in employee numbers. Or if the payroll is outsourced to a third party, maybe that local supplier may not have the infrastructure or staff to support that increase on the payroll. I mean, companies also may want to expand quickly in a certain geographical region, but do not have the contacts or the solutions to manage such payroll requirements in extra countries where they'll go on the market. So that's why I think scalability is also a challenge for international companies. And then there is the big debates about in-house or outsourcing. Well, for every global company, it's most of the time a debate. Do we manage our own payroll or do we outsource to a specialist? And because when you in-source, when you really do it on in-house, I think most people, the first thing they think is like, oh, I've got more control over my payroll because I'm doing it by myself. However, if you manage the payroll and it needs to be supported by a third party that has the system, yeah, you always need to make sure that that third party also is up to date with the legislative changes in the system. And then outsourcing to the payroll specialist, well, that could really also help people, but you also need to make sure that that vendor is also ready to support you in all those countries. And maybe if that vendor or several vendors is ready to support, they might have a variety of service levels. And that's also not always a constructive way or a coordinated way of working. And that might also give some confusions. But if you could find indeed a global vendor or a regional vendor that has that support model where you work with the local knowledge, but also supported by harmonization, by globalization, by really harmonized services they provide, I think that's also a very good card to play. So it's of course every company that needs to make the decision on whether they should go in-house or whether they should outsource the payroll to another vendor. And then I think that's also the fourth one is also an important one. And it's really a trend that I also see is that more and more people are requested to do have more analysis on the data. And I'm not sure if you know, but also some facts and figures, and that's important, is that approximately 18% of the companies have HR analytics, or 13% is planning to do such a project. That means that it's really important. It's really top of mind. And even 1 out of 4 invests in HR reporting. And in all transparency, and I'm not sure if the chat is working at the moment, but I would be very curious to know from the audience, how are you doing things? How do you manage your reporting and analysis across country? I'm not sure if somebody can put something in the chat so we can have a little bit of a view of how are the attendees or the companies doing at the moment, the people who attend this session. So I kindly invite you, and I will give you a minute just to throw something in the chat. Very open honesty. It's no wrong, no right. It's just, how is it today? Can we see it in the chat?
If not, if the chat, because it looks like the chat's, we're having a wonderful time with our technology today.
Okay.
If anybody's having an issue with chat, they can also put it in the Q&A so we can see the Q&A as well. Yeah, it's, I don't know why it's disabled, so I'm sorry.
That's okay, no worries. I'll assume
if you have to have a question, hit the Q&A.
No, it's fine. I assume there will be different ways of answering that. I think some companies are very mature in that. We've got something.
It's about, we have Excel. We use Excel. We work manually on vendor reports. Another one, we struggle with getting reporting from our current EOR, mainly use worksheets. Have an internal people analytics team. Do in-house KPIs. We have our ICP do most of our reporting. Outsourced to a third party. So there's a big variety. There's a big variety there.
Yeah. Well, you see, it's very alive, because I see people are very mature, but some people are really struggling every month with Excel sheets. Well, I think that's exactly how I also perceive it when I talk to people. And I think most people who just chatted that they do it with Excel, well, they don't have to be afraid. A lot of people are struggling with that. So a lot of HR, payroll managers, even people who do this KPIs every day as their job, they're struggling. So most of the time it is slow process with big spreadsheets. And I think it's very important that that is also a challenge, because it's a challenge that as a payroll services provider and HR provider, that we also start to incorporate powerful reporting and analysis tools, because that's so important for a global company to gain really a complete picture of the payroll, the costs, the efficiency. I mean, that's really important. And so I'm happy I received some feedback, because it's also confirming the importance of that topic. And then, because I also hear people saying, I've got a BI tool, I assume that that's also integration is also for a lot of HR managers top of mind. I mean, for global companies, they already might have invested significantly in global HR tools, or maybe workforce management tools, and being able to integrate these solutions, not just to the extent to have that return on investment, but also reduce or even eliminate unnecessary administrative tasks such as double data entry. That's important. So because having a good integration landscape, this also increases the accuracy of the data that is being entered into the payroll system. And as payroll is, of course, we all know that, driven by data and dependent on the accuracy of that data, integration can really, in my belief, have a significant benefit in that. And then, and I always think that I heard when Catherine also mentioned it, employee experience. I mean, the world gets smaller. It is. It's not in size, but really like us being more flexible and more, around the world. I think it's important that employees also receive a consistent service from their employer. I mean, historical, it wasn't uncommon for organizations to see issues in a certain country with their payroll that affected some employees. But as employees demand really more from their employers, and particularly with the increased focus on talent retention, war for talent, I think global companies need to have that infrastructure so they can really deliver a consistent high-level service across the globe.
Thank you, Isabel. One of the key things that we find from our membership is, compliance is one of the biggest issues. And we ran a survey, I think it was last year or the year before, and I think 81% were using Excel. So, I don't think it's changed that much since the last couple of years, but yes. So, Catherine, we're obviously hearing, about a lot of challenges at the moment. So what's your thoughts on the challenges that payroll departments currently face?
I think payroll providers, payroll departments are not, are not protected in terms of staffing. So I mean, all companies to a larger degree have staffing issues, and the payroll companies are no exception to that. So I think trying to maintain staff is an issue, and good staff as well. And I think if that is an issue for any of the people on this call today, or companies on this call, they really need to look at what they're doing to retain their staff. Again, what was reasonable prior to COVID isn't going to be reasonable now. You have to really think outside the box. Even go to your team and say, look, what are we doing? What are we doing wrong? Are you happy with the level of investment that we invest in you? Not from a salary point of view, but do you want more flexibility? Do you want to be able to work from home more if you're office based? Do you want to have flexible vacation? What else can we provide you that will that will help with the retention? I think the transparency is something that has to change for so many companies, because I've seen companies really fall down where there is a lack of transparency all the way through to the employees, and the second that there is transparency with the employees, that value increases. As an employee, I feel valued because my employer is trusting me with this information, so and really cares about my opinion. So I would say that the talent retention is a huge issue for payroll providers. And just again, just expanding a little bit more on what Isabella said, the compliance aspect is phenomenal for payroll providers. And in some countries, it's not just a financial X against the company name. Some directors in some countries have criminal sanctions against them for, if they haven't run payroll properly or if they haven't reported properly. So, the risks are colossal. So, in that regard, making sure that you are using, really good tools. I mean, we hear Excel, and anybody says that I'm clearly in the right area, because if I can't use Excel, ultimately, I'm a lawyer, I'm not a mathematician. That's what I've said in court for many years, just to try and get me out of making calculations. But is Excel the right tool for you as your company? If your company is expanding or growing, chances are Excel isn't the right tool for you. There are so many out there. Do a test, look to other payroll providers just to see what they are doing, and just try and grow your compliance. It'd be great if you could do it all at once, but Rome wasn't built in a day, was it? So you really have to dig in and look at what the need of the business is, and just start building up from there. There are so many great tools out there that are on the market to help payroll providers to do reporting and global reporting. There are things out there that can do global reporting. I mean, GP, we have great tools to help us do that, across over 200 countries. We do have issues in terms of cross-pollination with in-country payroll providers linking into our platform. But, as long as we are, continuing to, have the data stored, or we are providing the data to the authorities to maintain that compliance, then, it's something that we will continue to try and fix and to try and build on. So, yeah, compliance is a whole different webinar in itself when it comes to payroll, and it changes all the time. And I think that's the difficulty. And that is the biggest hurdle for any company when we talk about payroll, is the constant pivot that's needed to make sure that you're doing what needs to be done from a legislative point of view. So it is a really difficult function. I mean, making sure that you are staying on top of things like taxes, insurances is so important. So I think making sure that you have, certainly if you are doing cross-country payroll, you have a third party that you really, really trust. You've got a partner that you really trust. And whether that is an in-country partner or whether that is a global partner, whatever the need of the business is, then great. But they have to be somebody, you have to see that company as an extension to your own business. So there's an investment in them, in time, in effort, and really pick apart what it is they provide. And it has to be fit for purpose. It has to fit your business. So take the time to really look at the different third-party providers. And for some companies, an in-country provider is perfect, and for other companies they prefer a global provider. So just make sure that you as a company, you do your list as to what you need, and really pick apart what it is you need. Go to your employees, what's working, what isn't working, and really pick apart that for the business, so that the best decision can really be made. And just adding to that, there's no one right answer, there's not a one size that fits all. So it's got to be important that you've really looked at what it is you're trying to, what the need is and what you're trying to achieve. I mean, do you just want, is your business an hourly rate business, in which case can a local provider help you with that, or can a global provider help you with that? The different providers offer different services, so you have to make sure that you're going in with a clear understanding as what you want as a business and what they can provide to you, and if it works. There's so many times where I've seen things where companies have gone out to use a provider, a well-named provider maybe, that doesn't meet the needs of the business. So they've invested in onboarding that company, and a couple of months down the line, when payroll isn't run or taxes are not paid, or indemnities are not paid, then there's a whole other issue that you have to then invest in to undo, and then you've got to go back to market. So it makes sense to invest in that time and effort from right at the beginning, so that you know what you're getting involved with.
So, Catherine, just we've got a question here. So just thinking of time, because we've got quite a lot to go through, but there's a question for you. So you said maintaining good talent is a challenge. How do we strike a balance between automation and maintaining talent, especially with streamlined processes and integration?
So not everything, you can't automate everything. Okay, so be realistic about that. There's always got to be a human touch to everything, but it totally makes sense to automate the really easy things, and have the individuals who are responsible for that task to really help you with that automation piece, so then they still feel as though they're being heard, they feel that they are involved in that. And there's an element of feeling proud that they've achieved that. But just because, and also the reassurance, it's reassuring them that yes, we might be automating some of your job or all of your job, but there's all this other stuff that needs to be done. So it's you have to reassure your employees that yes, we are automating this, but look at all this other stuff all this other great stuff that we've got for you to do. And we're doing that in GP as we speak. We are automating so many different things on our platform, but we've got so much more to do, and we've got huge expectations that we will achieve. So we're doing a huge thing in terms of reassuring the teams that you have no concern with regards to your employment, and then they will invest that time.
Yeah. If I may pick up on that, because I fully agree, Catherine. I think automation is trying to avoid double data entry, avoid things that are repetitive work, and it's the human or the person that is important to give that added value, and that can never be really like covered by something in automation. So yeah, the humans are still important for the human touch.
Just before we got one more question, just before going to the next question, but Elizabeth, do you think there's a shortage of expertise in the payroll world?
I do think so. Because it is a complex world. It is a world where a lot of things are changing, a lot of things that you need to take into account, very specific. So yes, it is complex, and that's why it is important, if you don't have that expertise in house, and if you don't want to make mistakes and have some risk as a company, that you look for the perfect fit to externalize that expertise.
I think that's one of the biggest challenges we have as a payroll industry, is to get the talent back into payroll globally. It's not just a UK issue or Belgium issue. It's a global issue. So Isabel, integration with key business solutions. Why is this a challenge for organisations, and how does this impact payroll?
Super. Well, I think it's a nice bridge to the topic we just touched also with Catherine about optimization, about enhancing platforms and making sure that it goes smoother and smoother. I think what is important, and that's just a fact, payroll is driven by data. And that data is often managed and maintained in other systems. Especially in larger companies, you have global HR systems, you've got workforce management systems, maybe other tooling. But in some cases, the multinationals then especially, they could have multiple HR and workforce management systems. And I think if that data is really maintained and securely saved and integrated with payroll, then it really ensures that you have an accuracy of the payroll that will be processed. And it helps also, if that integration is done properly, it also eliminates the need for double data entry, double keying in different systems, and which is always problematic. You don't like doing that, and it could always lead to errors. And we're still talking about payroll, and payroll needs to be right. And that's why I think it is very important that we really truly think about integration and how can we optimize this and how can we have the best landscape of an integrated architecture. And I think that it's easy for me now to say you have to think about it, you have to have as many integrations as possible, so it's a nice flow of data. But I think it's also important to really highlight that integration is never easy. I mean, as a payroll services provider ourselves, we always advise our customers to spend really some time in evaluating on how the integration will be achieved, given the systems that you currently have or you will have in the future. I think you also need to check, like, what is the internal expertise that I have to assist with this? And if you're looking for outside expertise, you also need to make sure that this is also within your team of payroll persons and other subject matter expert that is properly planned. Because if you rely on a third party, you also need to have some resources that are available to support that third party to make sure that landscape is fully meeting your expectations. And then what is also important to know, and maybe finally, is we shouldn't reflect the data that we shouldn't reflect the fact that data also drives the payroll. So processes and procedures are always very important to ensure that if data is going to come from payroll to other systems, that the data is, of course, that the payroll systems get is also 100% accurate. Because I think we all agree that nobody wants his payslip to be almost right or nearly right. We just want to have it right because it's, of course, about the money of the employees.
Thank you, Isabel. We've got another question. Hello, I'd like to deep dive on the compliance piece. What would you advise to a compliance team to impact payroll positively from within? So that could be Isabel or Catherine, I suppose. Have you got any thoughts on that at all?
Isabel, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is, how do we reach to make sure that we've got compliancy, that there's no compliancy issues?
Yeah, what advice would you advise to a compliance team to impact payroll positively? So I suppose, like, how can you positively affect the payroll team via compliance?
I think what is important is that you really look at your own organization and that you really check, like, what expertise do I have? I think that's very important, and that you make sure that if you don't have the right expertise in-house, that you check or look in the market for the right partner for you. Because in global payroll, it can also be the case that you maybe have a long tail. This means you've got some expertise in larger countries, and you do not have any expertise in some smaller countries. So it might also be like a hybrid model where you say, some countries I've got the expertise, that's fine, then I'm compliant. If I don't feel comfortable in the smaller ones, you need to outsource and you need to check for that expertise. And then you also need to make sure that your systems, your software, your processes are all fully aligned to make sure they keep up to date, or your third party keeps up to date with the changes in the legislations. And I also think it's very important that all processes are fully documented, that you really see if something changes, what is the process? Will everything be kept up to date? And if you outsource a system to a third party, you also need to make sure that you've got that guarantee from that third party that they will keep everything up to date. So you've got really the last source of truth.
One other thing that I'd add is just go back and revisit. So whatever you bring in, whatever changes you make, large or small, go back and revisit them to make sure that they are doing what you need them to do. Because only then can you really understand that, yeah, that we've made the right decision there, and you move on to the next thing. So it's a constant evolution, but always go back and revisit. That's something I keep on saying to my team, you know, is this the right decision? Is this the right fix? Let's go back and revisit after a couple of months. Is it doing what we need it to do? And then you'll get a good sense of what's working and where certain other things need more time for review or you know, a different integration or something like that.
Thanks, Catherine. So, Catherine, as we're talking about compliance, aren't we, a lot today? What types of non-compliance are specific to remote hiring?
Right. Okay. So we've touched on a couple. So, you know, we've Isabel mentioned that, you know, you've got fines, you've got administrative penalties, and I also mentioned there's criminal liability in some countries for directors. So, you know, the compliance is key really to the business thriving, the business growing. If things become, you know, a little bit clunky, if things are not being run on time, if you know, if you are coming up with errors regularly, chances are you'll be on the spotlight of the authorities and they will look into everything. So, you know, in terms of remote hiring specifically, I mean, you know, there's your employees are not in the office, so you can't see, you know, what they're doing. So you need to make sure that you have got, you know, the infrastructure in place in order to make sure that you know, your employees are doing what they need to be doing, and also that you are hiring those employees properly. You know, the biggest thing that we see, and that I know from colleagues and lawyers, you know, around the world that I work with, is there's so many cases of illegal hiring, or people finding themselves in some countries where that's not their home country, that's not the country they should be working in, which gives rise to a significant issue for the companies. And in turn, that will then give rise to administrative penalties and you know, the things that I've just said. So, you know, making sure that, you know, you understand you know, what you should be doing in the countries from a hiring perspective. And, you know, there are specific requirements in many countries where if you do have a remote hiring formation of a business, you have other obligations from a reporting point of view, from health and safety policies. And if you don't have those, then you really do need to be working with a partner that can help you figure that out, what is relevant to your business, what isn't relevant to your business. So I think, you know, the biggest things are understanding, you know, the country norms, partnering with you know, third-party providers that can help you with that, and just making sure that you are sympathetic to the different country requirements. A lot of you know, matters that I've dealt with in the past in my entire practice, not just here at GP, is where companies go into specific countries thinking that they can manage it like their home country. So from a UK perspective, I'm a UK lawyer, you know, the company goes into Germany thinking that they can do everything that they do in the UK because it's all right to do that. No, it absolutely is not. So always be sympathetic to those the different requirements in country. There are always going to be different requirements, and just be realistic as to that. Yeah, I think those are the main things that you need to just be careful of. And then obviously you've got data protection and a whole world of other things that come under the employment side of things. But remote hiring specifically, there are some other obligations that you need to be aware of.
I can imagine data protection's potentially another whole webinar.
Absolutely. And it will last longer than an hour for sure.
And it's quite a dry subject, isn't it, as well? So we have to do some entertainment while we're doing it. So we're on to one of my favourite parts. We have a poll that we'd like you to answer, please. I always have my magic number. So the poll is, what is the best way of ensuring international payroll runs smoothly? So I'm just going to launch that now. Hopefully everyone can see that. The company should invest in performing the role itself. The company should outsource the role to a global employment platform. The company should only do domestic local hiring as international remote hiring is too complex. So what do you think the main one is going to be on here, guys?
I think it's going to be B.
I think so too. I agree, Catherine.
So we'll just give it oh, sorry, Catherine.
I was going to say, unless you are a big, huge company that has the infrastructure in house, I can't see how it will be possible to, to run that payroll internally for, from an international perspective. Also depends on the number of countries, I suppose, but yeah.
Okay, so we're nearly out of my magic number. So thank you, everyone. If you haven't voted, could you just please just do a quick vote? Thank you, whoever that person was. Thank you. Okay, so I've reached the magic number now, so thanks for that. And I'm going to end the poll in 2 seconds. Thank you. So thank you to everyone that got involved. Okay, so you're right. The company should outsource the role to a global employment platform.
Makes sense. Does make sense.
Yeah, I do know of one company that decided to do it all themselves, like, and then they changed their mind afterwards and then went to a global platform. So
yeah, I know again, before my time at GP, there were a couple of companies that I worked with, and when the issue of payroll came up, it was we'll do it internally. How hard can it be? Okay, good luck with that.
Yeah.
and they always came back. So yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people that are on this webinar today have actually heard that. How hard can payroll be? I think actually maybe a well-known tech company was also thinking, how hard could payroll be? And then obviously we all know, but I won't mention that now. Anyway, right. So Catherine, how can employers ensure payroll compliance across multiple countries?
I think I've set the foundation from the last question, Mel. I'm just conscious of time. I think that being sympathetic to the different countries, understanding their nuances, will just allow any payroll provider to just start thinking about compliance and the things that need to be put in place. It does need to be country specific. Unfortunately, there's no way of a one size fits all. So you have to do it country by country by country, and taking the time to invest. So you can do it. It depends on how quickly you want to do it. If you want to do it quickly, chances are you're going to have to outsource it. It's not, outsourcing can be expensive, but when we talk about the impact from a compliance point of view and the commercial impact in that how much it's going to cost you to get all these people in to run payroll in many different countries, chances are it's a cheaper option. So I think my biggest thing would be to get speed to go to market and to run payroll in these different countries. I wouldn't hesitate by using a third-party provider, because all those boxes should be checked. But again, drawing on what I said earlier on, make sure the provider is the right fit for your business.
Thank you. Obviously conscious of time, because I can't believe how quick today has already gone. So Isabel, as a payroll provider, how do you help your customers to ensure their global payrolls are compliant? Oh my God, this is another huge question, isn't it, really?
I know. And I'm sorry for running out of time, but it's such an exciting topic. So you see, this is really what we do day to day. So we're so excited about that. And I hope we didn't disappoint any person who is now like afraid of doing global payroll, because it's really exciting. But you need to have, of course, the right expertise internally out or maybe outside. So I'm going to be very short and crisp on that one, but important. How do we help? Well, I mean, Europe is quite complex. I think we all know that. And as a European payroll services provider, we do understand that. We're ready for ages in business. And there are a lot of different legislative requirements across different countries. And in some cases in country, like they're even more complex because France, Italy, different departments, etc. So companies need to make sure they've got the expertise in-house or outsourced. So that's why, in order to meet the expectations of our customers, we have invested a lot in having our own offices, our own subject matter experts, payroll experts in all local countries across Europe. And what is also important for us is that that expertise is also made available for our customers, that our customers can really call directly with the experts should they want to do so, if they want to have a question and they say, how we heard something that in Germany this changes, what is the impact for us? So basically, we also make sure that you've got access to those in-country specialists. And then what is also important to mention is that we closely work also with regional partners who can really assist companies who are looking, because it's very special, it's very specific, to hire for the first time an employee in a country. And it's a bit always scary to hire from the first time. You've never done that before. You need to take into account all these things you've never heard of. And without having an established legal entity, it's sometimes even harder. This can be a real challenge for customers. And that's why in that area, we of course work with globalization partners to really give our customers also that service and make sure they can have an employer of record or access to best of practice tax and legal support. And then the crucial bit is not only making sure your customer is aware, like this has been changed in legislation, not just remain compliant, but also that our customers get a little bit of a translation on, okay, this is the law, has been changed, but what will be the implications on your day-to-day business? I mean, the furlough scheme, when it was introduced in the COVID period, I'm sorry, I'm dragging back the COVID period into this discussion, but it's not only how this has been changed and introduced, but it's also to support customers like, okay, but what does that concrete mean for your business? And that's why we did webinars, we did sessions where people could ask questions and could really have that translation from law into all the way to the business.
Thank you. So oh, sorry, I've lost you now, haven't I? Sorry, let me go back. So one of the questions, actually, this is a great question. So how important is culture when managing global payroll? So this is over to you, Catherine.
I think culture is huge for any company, right? You can succeed or fall with regards to the culture in the business. But when you're talking about global payroll, there's so many different things that you need to be aware of. You need to be aware of the cultural differences. You need to be aware of the different requirements in certain countries. In relation to certain payments. I mean, you've got, in some countries, you've got 13th and 14th month payments. I mean, that was a huge thing to me. I was like, why on earth there's not a 13th or 14th month in the year? Why are we doing that? But that's the requirement in those countries. So really understanding those cultural differences is a very, very important thing for the business to do. So and also it's not just one currency. It's not just dollars or pounds. You've got all these different currencies, and I personally think it's super interesting to understand how, certainly in the European Union, how a lot of these regulations that we talk about and deal with every day are built from one thought, and that's the European Union. So, and each country interprets it differently. So I'm really interested on the nuance in how different countries interpret different pieces of legislation. So, and understanding the slight historical background of that country will help. And I had to do that when we're talking about the 13th and 14th month payments in some countries, and I was blown away by it. So and also then that by you investing in that understanding and education, again, you make those people in whatever country feel empowered, they feel invested in, they feel part of the team. So you might be headquartered in the UK, but you might have 15 different payrolls in 15 different countries, but you want everyone to feel as part of your organization, because then they will do more for you. And that's only going to happen if you understand where they're coming from in individual countries. So the culture is big, because that's how you maintain your talent level, and then that's how you grow, and that's something that you can be proud of as a business. So I am very passionate about culture, coming from a global company. So yeah, it's something that I'm very proud of to be part of, to be honest, as an employee. So yeah, those are the main things, I think, Mel.
Thank you. So Isabel, what trends are you currently seeing at the moment?
Yes, I will keep it short, because I see time really flies. But let's say I see 5. I think flexible working is one of the main trends that we see. I mean, employees, they want to work anywhere. Now they as they pursue their careers, they want to change countries, and that often happens. I can see that even within my company, we do have that local offices. And I just saw yesterday moving somebody from the Netherlands, and now she works in Malaga office. So basically, it's happening in all international companies, and you really need to make sure that as an international company, you also give, and I already touched that point, a consistent service to those employees who shift from one country to another country. And then also the second trend I see is really analysis. I also mentioned that before, so I won't dive into the details, but I think customers more and more ask also from their vendor to have supporting them in have more visibility of costs of payroll process and pay elements. So it also helps them to have that visibility, just to make really informed decisions. And then also a trend that I see is that customers are moving away from having a patchwork of vendors, where they have the French payroll over there and the German payroll over there, just like patchwork, but it's high maintenance of having that patchwork. Is they're moving away from that setup all the way to the choice of having one global or a regional provider, because it of course helps them if they have one regional provider, for example, to manage the requirements, of course, better in multiple countries. And then there's also a trend within a company to instead of having the local teams, is to go a little bit more to a centralized HR and payroll service setup, and that's of course to support the war for talent, and to make sure that if you also work in a hub, it could also help with cost savings, and you cluster things in a shared service center. That could also be beneficial. And then also finally, maybe it's about flexibility. I'm already for 25 years in the payroll service, in the payroll business. So payroll has always been a little bit of a rigid thing. You get paid monthly or bi-weekly, but it's on a fixed date. Well, things are trying to evolve and change in that matter. So employees want to access their money more frequently than that. And why not? I mean, it's their money. They worked for it. So why do I have to wait until the end of the month to finally get paid? So we got those demands, from time to time, and even more often and often. And that's why we have now also a partnership also to support our customers with the demand from the employees to get more access to their money.
Thank you so much, Isabel. So we've only got a couple of minutes left, and there's been so many questions, and I know Catherine's answered them. So thank you so much, because we said, and we got a bit passionate, I think, talking about the payroll industry, didn't we? But there, I don't know if we've got time, but there was one question that I thought was quite interesting, and I know you answered directly, but are employers allowed to track location of their employees to ensure they are compliant and tax employees correctly, or is it against GDPR? So we get asked this quite a lot. So I don't know if you can answer this in a couple of minutes. Sorry, Catherine.
Yeah. So you can't track employees, okay? Because again, there's so many pieces of legislation that, globally, that prohibit us to do that, and it's another webinar itself. However, so there's two things. If you want the employee to stay within their location, or if you just want them to report, when they are traveling, because in the European Union there is free movement, so they can travel within that specified period. If they travel outside of that specified period, then they will have problems getting back into their home country, and it does vary depending on their home country. So you've got 90 days, you've got 160 days. So it really depends where their home country is and where they are traveling. There's two things that I would say is, if you are flexible and you are happy for your employees to travel and work at the same time, I would put a global mobility policy together that says, we're happy for you to do that. However, we do expect you to be in close contact with us. We need to remind you as to your travel obligations, from your home country, wherever that may be. It is a immigration restriction. They will be prevented from entering into a country, and they will be stuck somewhere. So it is a huge issue if they don't really consider this. So that's something that I would suggest to put in place if you are, as a business, you are flexible about travel. And as a company, then, from a compliance perspective, I would keep an Excel spreadsheet. Sorry for saying it, I can't believe I said it. Keep a record, at least, of the travel, so that you know where they are. If you don't want people to be moving around, and some companies don't want that, I totally understand it. In the contract of employment, there should be a mobility clause. So in that contract, in any contract, certainly in the UK and many European jurisdictions, it says something along the lines of, your place of work is your home address, wherever that may be in the UK. You are hired to carry out your work at your home address. You may be required to travel to a location for business purposes. So that doesn't give them the ability to travel wherever they want to, whenever they want to. That clause allows you as a company to allow them to travel on company business wherever you want them to travel. And that would be then at your expense. So it really depends on what you're trying to achieve, what your comfort levels are. If you don't want them to travel, I would just reinforce that mobility clause. And say, the expectation is that you are working from home to carry out your activities. And if they don't do that, that's a breach of contract. So that is a potential, termination of employment if they don't adhere to that. And on top of that, if you're not clear and direct when it comes to employees traveling, the company could be in hot water from a tax point of view. You could be contacted by the authorities in Germany because your employee has been in Germany for 120 days, which is not permitted, certainly out of the UK. So you really do need to be careful. And I would say this is one investment that every company should make, given the world that we live in right now. Certainly, if the expectation is for the employees to work from home, we have done it. We have got a global mobility policy that is very flexible when it comes to travel within reason, and we've been very careful in terms of setting those boundaries. Every employer has to, and that doesn't mean you're not being flexible, or it doesn't mean you're not being a good egg. It just means that you were trying to manage your business, and it's essential that you do that, certainly if you've got remote work employees.
Thanks so much, Catherine. Right, well, I'm sorry to say that today's come to an end. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you so much, Isabel. If you do want to watch the recording again, it will be available on the GPA website. So thank you both for spending time with us this afternoon. If you have any questions, please contact Isabel and Catherine via LinkedIn. I hope that's okay. Or you can always contact myself and I can pass the questions on. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.